Test. I'm a-coming. Sound is messed up on the live stream, so we're having to get that fixed. Test. There we go. You're welcome. I know better than with my wife. Oh, me. I know. Good evening. Glad that you're here. I want to go ahead and get us going. And there will be several announcements this evening at the time that we do that. For the sake of the people on live stream, I do want to mention who might be watching this who want to know she did come through her surgery okay. I have not gotten to talk to her yet, but there you go. So we know that she's doing well. Joyce is doing well as well. All I will say. Okay, but both of them are doing well. I will say that I had a exactly, but yeah, I know. I was trying to make announcements and it turned into facts. And anyway, I have degradation around that area of my neck, and and all those bone spurs are cutting up and having their field day with the nerves in my neck. So suffice it to say, they gave me a steroid shot. They have prescribed PT, and they said if that doesn't work within a month, then MRI and most likely surgery. Everything that has been hurting with my shoulder and my arm and loss of muscle strength is all due to my neck. Yeah. Everything is connected back to an injury that happened long ago that I had completely forgotten about until today. So exactly. So yes. Yeah. So suffice it to say. No. Suffice it to say, I just ask for your prayers, because I am kind of worried about it, because then I would, if it doesn't go well with the physical therapy and stuff, I have to get surgery, and I've never, it'll terrifying to me, but just be praying. Yeah, pray for Sarah, because pretty much that's what she wants is to have two plus a big baby. But anyway, we are vastly approaching it, and I forgot to bring the books up here too. Nick, are you back there? There's a box of books on the first chair in my office that are part 2 of John. If you can go get them for me, please. They did come in, and so tonight and next week are the last 2 lessons of this book. Then we'll go straight into the next book. That way we're not missing a beat with the book of John. So you can get your book tonight if you want to go ahead and get your book, and you can be getting ready for when we start part 2 of John. But we are in John chapter 10. Are in John 10. We're talking John sermon on the I am statements of Christ. And as I even said during that series, I did not go into grave detail because of just if you want to get into a deep dive study of John, a little bit of understanding of where we're at with John chapter 10. We are somewhere, we don't know necessarily where, but John chapter 10 is roughly the halfway point. It's the halfway point of John's gospel. Because you cannot count that really the first half of, when I say you cannot count, let me preface this by saying that the first half of chapter 1, as we discovered when we started this study, the first half of chapter 1 is really just John giving an overview of creation, giving an overview of the understanding of what's going on, trying to get everyone prepared for what they are about to embark on, which is the study. Then you go further. John touches on a couple of key events early on in the ministry of Jesus. Number one being the wedding at Cana, the first miracle that he performs where he is not wanting to do it in public, but he has his official meeting with Nicodemus at night. And we talked about all of that and the significance that he mentions this. So the first 6 months of Jesus' ministry is wrestling with all of these things. Now, in the midst of all of this, he goes off into the wilderness, as we know, and he's tempted by Satan. He comes back from that, and he's now starting this with him being exalted. He has been baptized by John the Baptizer and all this. I'm going through all this to set up John 10 because all of it will make sense here in just a second. John chapter 4, he meets the woman at the well. We know the story very well. He tells her, again, this is all being told to people who are not his followers yet. He is telling them things that he has not even told the 12. His closest friends, his closest allies, he's telling people that he hasn't even told them yet. He's telling them things about himself and about what he's going to do. He heals a Jewish official's son. Again, come to the other spiritual elites, not come to the Sanhedrin, not going to anybody else. He's gone to Jesus. So that takes you all the way through chapter 4. Chapter 5 and chapter 6, we get Jesus' authority. And in the midst of all of chapter 7 is that the elite have been questioning everything he's doing. They want Jesus, but really it's a jaded defense, because what happens is that he says, does our law judge a man without first giving him a hearing and learning what he does? So it's not really a defense of Jesus, it's a defense of the law. Nicodemus is aware and is very knowledgeable of what the law states. Those men were too, and they were willing to go against it. Chapter 8, he sets forth the principle of being the light in the darkness, being the one who was before Abraham. Who is our father is Abraham. Well, before Abraham was, I am. So you have these scenes. Talked about this last week, that the blind man that the spiritual elite wanted him cast out of. You dare to bear for the Sabbath. That takes us up to John chapter 10, and really John chapter 10 is a continuation of John 9. And this is where theologians, where preachers, where teachers, where Bible class teachers, and anyone who does any kind of Bible study absolutely hates chapter breaks. Because chapter 9, verse number 41 is, and John chapter 10, verse 1 is a continual thought. There is no new scene being set up. It is in the same scene. Now, for the sake of those watching online, and maybe for you here in the auditorium, verse 35. I have my ESV. I don't have my New King James in front of me. I apologize for that, but my ESV is in front of me. Jesus heard. This is John 9:35. I'll read to verse 1 of chapter 10, okay? Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and having found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered and said, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said to him, "Are we also blind?" Jesus said to him, "If you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say we see, your guilt remains. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber." See the continuation of thought. The question. Now, John chapter 10 is a very important. Also, from 1 Timothy chapter 3 and Titus, where you find the qualifications of elders. This is the most important chapter that elders could read, study, and pray over. Because this chapter is talking about shepherds. Talking about the sheep and the sheepfold, the door to the sheepfold, and the one who protects that door. Now, as I have told you before, and then I'll open it up to any comments or questions. As I've told you before, in the Bible, you will go through, if you go and study any passage, you will find that there is a official, direct, primary interpretation of the passage, which is the baseline, what is being said. So the interpretation of John chapter 10 is that Jesus is the chief shepherd. He is the one that protects his kingdom. He's the one who takes care of us. He's the one who protects the sheep. Right? That is the primary thought in John 10. Secondary interpretation, which is more of application, is for leaders of the local congregation. Shepherds, lead. Shepherds, protect your flock. Shepherds, know your flock. Because the great shepherd, the chief shepherd, knows every one of his flock by name. And the question that can be interpreted out of this is, do you? That's the question that is asked. Do you know your flock? Now, there's a third. So there's the primary, the secondary, and I don't know what you would call the tertiary. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. The tertiary. That doesn't sound... Third. I'm from Alabama. I don't... Tertiary, third, whatever you want to call it. The other meaning is sheep. obey your shepherd. Obey your shepherds. Listen to them. Know where the door is. Know that they're there for you. That's why Bible study is so important. Because John 10, you could spend a full year just in need of a helper. We are shepherdless and we need a shepherd. So that's the point. If I'm just going through the entire lesson and just giving a basic overview of the entire lesson of lesson 12 of our workbook, that's the entire lesson. We could stop at 7:25. Some of you would be absolutely happy with that. But we don't need to do that just yet, because we need to be understanding of what is actually being said. So before we go further, does anybody have any comments or questions? Does that make sense on the surface? Hopefully it does. If it doesn't, please let me know. But do you have any comments or questions concerning what we've talked about thus far? Don't everybody speak up at once. Okay, well, let me ask this. If you look at John chapter 10, what are some of the characteristics that Jesus uses of a shepherd? Not necessarily of himself, but just of a shepherd. What are some of the characteristics he uses? They say that again. There you go. I thought that's what you said. I just want to make sure. He'll lay his life down for the sheep. He's willing to do anything, because those sheep are his, in reality. We don't know this. We don't know this fully understanding of this. We're not fully understanding of this in the Western world. But in the Middle East, if you're a shepherd, those sheep are your livelihood. They are it. You lose one, you could lose everything. You cannot lose a single one. But if someone tries to come and rob, tries to come and steal, you have to be willing to give your life. You have to be willing to lay your life on the line. Not run away. Yeah, exactly. Don't run away from the problem. Face it head on. What's another characteristic of a shepherd in John 10? Know the sheep. We know the sheep, and they will know you. We mentioned that close to the outset of this. You need to know who's in the fold. You need to know who's in your gates. You will know each one of them. Richard, you know each one of your cattle that's on your property? I bet you do. And they know you. Well, that's the thing, is they trust their shepherd. They trust their owner. They trust the one taking care of them. But that trust has to be built. And that trust is only built when you take time with them as a shepherd, as one who is taking care of the flock. What else? What are some other characteristics? Leader. You have to lead them to the food and water. One of the we mentioned that besides the qualifications, which those are very, very, very important for elders, but besides that, you need the application of what you're doing. Well, one of the characteristics and one of the qualifications, I should say, one of the qualifications of an elder is to be apt to teach, which means lead. And what is the food and what is the water? The living of so many preachers over the last probably 20 years, especially the last 20 years, have been trying so hard to make sure that they say it's not just the preacher's job. Yes, I stand in the pulpit and I, in some people's minds, flap my gums, but I teach. I give my interpretation of Scripture, but at the end of the day, although I'm the minister, I am not a shepherd. I don't hold that title. And really and truly, and no offense, Nick, no offense, Morris, no offense to any elder, but I really don't want to hold that title. There's enough stress that comes with ministry as it is. I don't want all that stress as well. But here's the thing. With that being said, elders are the ones who really are leading the congregation, because they're the ones who make the decisions. So you look at this and you look at what Jesus says here, and there is spoke of the thieves and robbers of these false messiahs that had come through. And there had the Sanhedrin for a number of years had claimed different men to be the Messiah that didn't end up being the Messiah. Saying John would later refer to this very group in a different way, but he refers to this group again in 1 John and 2 John as the group that he affectionately dubs the Antichrists, because they do not believe in Jesus. So he affectionately dubs them the Antichrists. And this is just another example of when we see factions taking place within the church and splits happening, is when we see the apostles, the gospel writers, the writers of the New Testament speaking of these men. And whoever else was in this group. We know that there are even now people that you could lump into a group that are anti-Christ. They are anti-Bible. They are anti-gospel. They are anti-God, whatever you want to call them. But here's the thing, is class, what does Jesus say about this group? About the one who protects the flock from this group? What does he say? There you go. I am the gate. There's nothing else. Don't listen to anybody else. Don't put stock in what man is saying. And so he says all this. I am the gate. I am the good shepherd. I am the door. He says all these different things. And what did the authority say? What were the authority saying about him?
He was born into sin. He's trying to tell them what to do.
He was born into sin. He has a demon. He's insane. He's a peasant preacher after all. Wears robes that are dingy. He looks like he hasn't had a good sleep in months. He doesn't have a home, and he doesn't wear the regalia of the spiritual elite, David. But yet, he says, I am the door. It's only me. Oh yeah. We're the same way. We have high vaulted expectations. Let my soapbox for a minute. Preachers' wives, elders' wives, deacons' wives, and elders and deacons. We have some very, very messed up what they should say to be an elder. Why did we put him in as a deacon? His wife is blah 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 blah. Really? Okay. There you go. Or is it about stoking the flame of Jesus Christ in the world? Well, what I'm saying is that's the point. Is the person in the pulpit, the person holding title of elder or title of deacon or whatever, youth minister, jail minister, whatever you want to say, okay? There should be no ego. There should be no ego in the pews. As a Christian, we should be far from having an ego. Paul even says, do not think of anyone else above yourself. Don't think of anyone, don't think.
Deacon, someone, give a title. We refer to him as Elder Nick.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving him a title. We're distinguishing him from everybody. He's an elder. He is not just an elder. We should say Nick is an elder in our church, but we should refer
When you look at elders being mentioned within the text of Scripture, they are mentioned by their name. They are not mentioned as elder. They're not mentioned as saint. They're not mentioned as this, that, or the other. They are mentioned as Demetrius. So it's safe to say that we don't call them by their title. Because, again, it's not about the title, it's about the service. That's the reason why when people say to me, I'll pick on myself. When I go into the community, go anywhere, and they say, well, where do you pastor, or where are you the reverend of? I stop them. Normally, now that I have gotten a little bit older, I don't say, well, I'm not a reverend and I'm not a pastor. No, for elders, by the way, just for or helping others. Now we should be taking care of our own spiritual lives. Don't take me as saying we don't take care of our spiritual life, but we have to make sure that we are not putting title above anything else.
There's so many denominations that do that.
Right.
And it puts so much emphasis on that.
Mm-hmm.
That it just doesn't sound real. It sounds like they are putting you on a pedestal, and that's not what it should be.
The thing is, it's all about, and this is for elders, for deacons, for people in the pews. We're all Christians, but the thing is, it's for all of us. We should all have some boundaries when it comes to that kind of stuff. And one of the boundaries is we do not put title above.
Don't you think that when you speak of a member of a brother or sister that will help the
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I can remember vividly being in a lecture, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago now, at Freed Hardeman. I was in a lecture listening to an older preacher, and he said, somebody asked him, because he opened it up to, he was talking about ministry and talking about elders and talking about deacons, talking about leadership and all that, and his text was partly from John chapter 10, and that's the reason why a lot of my points sound like coming from a lecture, is because they have been adapted somewhat from things that I've heard over the years from people I have sat at the feet of. And one of the things that he said is he was sitting in a business meeting one time, and there was an elder who kept on referring to him as not even brother, but as Mr., and I won't call his last. Finally, brother so and so, he looked at him and said, "Brother so and so, can I have a prayer with you?" Now, this preacher said that we had not seen eye to eye for quite some time, but he said, when I looked at him and said, "Can I have a prayer with you?" Right then, after he had been so red-faced it looked like he was about to explode, he said, I looked at him and said, "Brother, can I have a prayer with you?" And at that moment, that brother, that elder, started crying. And they prayed, and after he asked him what was going on, he said, "You're the first one who is not my wife to pray with me. No one even in the church is asked to pray with me." Now, what does that have to do with calling each other brother? It's because no matter what title you hold, preacher, elder, deacon, Bible class teacher, janitor, secretary, whatever, card writer, or just someone who sits in the pews and studies and tells people, who offers prayer. But the prayer is for others, not for themselves. We need to be understanding. Everyone who's sitting behind that sheep gate needs to be taking care of each other too. Now, I know that's kind of a downer way of ending the class, but I need to let you know. I need to let you know something, and this is very important. Is that, as Brother Eichmann puts it in his cool down, early Christians living in a time of hardship and persecution, the image of Jesus was caring and gentle as a shepherd, but they must have held great meaning. That must have held great meaning. Most of us today, down for the sheep, is a good image and one to rally around. If you have any comments or questions or thoughts, or want to just different route, because I think that's what the lesson called for, is going a different route and seeing what the actual text is saying, not just a 36,000 or even a 15,000 foot view, but what the text is really saying. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, we comfort because we have been comforted. We love because we have been loved. We help because we've been helped. We serve because Jesus served. It all goes back to having Jesus as the center. And our love for ourselves is centered on Jesus having loved us. And that's a very good point. Very good point. Well, thank you guys for your whatever you want to call it. Attention. There we go.
See all that?
I hope not. I hope not. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. This past Monday, I was able to go, it was 2 days ago, I was able to go to a dear brother in Christ. His name is Matt Miller, who's the minister of Fountainhead Church of Christ, just outside of Nashville. Graduated from Nashville Church of Christ, Nashville School of Preaching, and he did the chapel at 10:30 on Monday morning. And I want to share with you what I shared on Facebook, which is a quote from him that I think is very worth our time in knowing what is going on in the world today, going on in our lives today, and the understanding of what goes on captive. However, God has made a way. Let me say that again, and this should put a smile on your face. Or see any good within yourself at all, and keep you with Satan, because that's really his end game. He is a roaring lion, seeking who he wants to devour. He is a thief in the night. He is a whatever. He's not a red colored person with horns and a pitchfork and a spiked tail. That's not what Satan looks like. Satan is your worst fears, your primary temptations, and your secondary temptations. All of your temptations. wrapped up into one. And He wants to keep you with Him because He does not want anybody to see the goodness in God. However, God made a way. God's made a way. You want to know the best part? Barry, you want to know the best part of this? You don't? Okay. All right. I won't tell you. You can close your ears, Barry. I'm going to tell everybody else. No, I'm going to tell everybody. The best part of this, I know the end of the story. I know the end. You want to know the end of the story? We win. Wait, what? We win. And I want you part of the winning team. I want you part of the team that says, glory be to God in the highest, and peace, good tidings, waiting for me. We win. God's made a way. We have to follow the way. Well, what's the way? The way is the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me, and that's Jesus. Beautiful thing about the Bible, beautiful thing about Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther is the fact that we see that God's not absent. God is right here with us, standing with us. Providentially, He is standing with you too. I want you to shout it. But we need to make sure our lives are right. That wickedness isn't holding us captive. It's not keeping us in our place. Start thinking about, what does God want me to do? How does God want me to live? And if I need to change, I should. And if it is that I have not put Christ on in baptism as some of you to that end, we can do whatever, we can help you with whatever you need tonight, whatever it is. Why don't you come as we stand and sing? I wander far